coming to you with another video, commentary. One thing that I noticed is that, you know, Muslim women were convinced that they were being oppressed by non-Muslim women because non-Muslim women had hot girl summer. Non-Muslim women had, the carousel, being on like the carousel and stuff like that. They have all these options available to them. And so, they convinced non-Muslim women, or they convinced Muslim women that, hey, you guys are missing out. You guys are, you guys are basically missing out on the good times. You know what I mean? Like that's basically what happened. And so what happened was, in addition to them, convincing them, hey, you're missing out, and I'm not going to accuse any Muslim women. I'm not going to like just blatantly make accusations or anything like that. I'm not going to just, put them under one umbrella. But what happened was, unfortunately, what happened is, a lot of Muslim women took after like non-Muslim women's ways. And one of those ways was feminism. That's one of the things that they took after non-Muslim women was the whole feminism thing. And so what happened was you have unfortunately you have these different like groups of people who they say things like the Muslim woman is oppressed and like she doesn't have a fair shake and stuff like that. And by all means, nobody's denying that there are some cultural things that are done that really don't equivalent to Islam. But again, we're talking about culture. We're not talking about the legislative things that consist in the religion. So now the thing is that happens, and I see this happen a lot, and I hate to revert back to Clubhouse, but to be honest with you, this kind of like this whole channel basically kind of was as crazy as it sounds, it was just kind of like done as a result of I want to say as a result of these modern Muslim women, but of course it's going to channel women regardless, if they're modern or whatever, the modern women who are Muslim or non-Muslim. But it's just that, like, especially when you go on Clubhouse and you see how these Muslim women are talking, you see how they're acting and stuff like that, and you're like, and they look towards like Kim Kardashian, they look towards all of them instead of like looking towards like their predecessors. It was crazy because I remember there was this one Muslim woman on there covered up like hijab, everything. And then she was referring to another woman as a bad bee. And I'm like, huh? And you're calling yourself, like, I didn't question her faith, but I'm like, okay, well, where did you get that from? Did you get that, from the mother of the believers, Khadijah, Audu Billah? Yeah, but anyhow, one thing that is often like thrown in our face, and is making it hard for Muslim women to get married, because Muslim men are simply saying, well, if you're not going to submit and stuff like that, I'm going to find someone who does submit. And sometimes finding someone who does submit means like, hey, looking elsewhere, looking outside of their outside of where they usually look. But let's see how a Muslim sister who's still on the hawk refutes one of the bad things that Muslim women have picked up, and that's feminism. Let's hear what she has to say, and yeah, let's listen to it.
Feminism denies the human reality. It is unclear. It's claimed that women need feminism because there are women that suffer injustice. But this ignores that nearly all human beings suffer injustice at some point in their lives at the hands of either men or women.
And that's a fact. Like, that's the thing. Like, injustices are done by everybody. Men and women alike. Like, for example, like, I want to say something about that. You guys talk about feminism and the need for feminism and the need for equality and stuff like that. But what about the men who get cheated out of like millions, thousands upon thousands of dollars, taking care of kids who are not theirs? And when the paternity test proves that it's not theirs, like what happens with them? Like, why? Like, are you going to give them their money back for being cheated? Like, you know what I mean? Where's our fair shake? And since you guys are equivalent, like, using feminism, saying that it will bring equality when it brings something other than equality.
And justice for only one group of society to the exclusion of another is like a bird without one wing. It just doesn't fly. Men have a fundamental need for justice just the same as women do. And whilst the very word feminism discriminates, the word justice doesn't. Justice means giving people what they deserve or merit. But as we'll see, feminism and justice are not synonymous.
And that's a fact. Like, I mean, exactly. Like, there is nothing that a male would benefit from feminism. You know what I mean? There's no kind of tangible benefit that a male would gain from feminism. Okay? Nothing at all. Okay?
Feminism is a highly ambiguous term, straitjacketing instead of liberating. It is the call for gender privilege, masquerading as equality. In essence, feminism denies the human...
That's a fact. That is a fact. It's gender privilege. And, alhamdulillah, Amber Heard is a start for the changing of the changing of the cycle. They ruled against Amber Heard, alhamdulillah. And hopefully there'll be more situations like that, where it actually rules against the woman. So we can actually have equality instead of privilege, because that's pretty much what feminism is. It's gender privilege. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically what it comes down to. So this sister is absolutely right. You know what I mean? When you're learned in religion, you tend to talk with sense, and you tend to think before you talk. And this sister, I'm pretty sure she's learned it. So she talks with sense, and she thinks before she talks. Unfortunately, a lot of Muslim women on Clubhouse who bought the feminist tea, and unfortunately, I'm not going to name her, but there's this nominal Muslim who she claims to be Muslim, but I really doubt she even practices. I doubt she practices, because she didn't even know that the Prophet, alayhi salatu salam, she didn't even know that he married a Jewish woman. You know, that he married a Jewish woman and he married a Coptic woman. She had the audacity to say, "What prophet did that?" It's like, okay, yeah. I was about to ask her, even, are you even Muslim? You know, I was about to really go there with her. You know, it's not that I was gonna make like any, like, I guess you can say, tap fear on her. But yeah, I was really about to go there and say, yeah, are you even Muslim, or you just say you're Muslim? You know, I was about to go there, but I didn't. But let's continue on.
In reality, it is unclear and not the cause for justice. To begin, feminists advocate that women have traditionally been dehumanized in a male-dominated society, which they call the patriarchy, and that it has always been better to be a man. But this one-sided claim snubs...
And that's not true, because of the simple fact that you guys very much now have a gynocracy, or I should say a hynocracy, or I should say a matriarchy that's like basically having what we have today. Like, you guys are talking about a patriarchy. Like, where at though? Where is the patriarchy when courts rule in favor of you guys most of the time? Where's the patriarchy where you guys are getting access to everything you wanted, jobs, school, and stuff like that? Where's that patriarchy when you guys are allowed to degrade men on TV with these talk shows and stuff like that? Like, I'm still trying to figure out where the patriarchy is. Like, I'm very much confused, you know. So yeah, that I find that very laughable. Seriously, it's very, very laughable. Let's continue.
The privileges that women have often enjoyed simply for being women. The dynamics of society at the most basic level show that it has actually always been better to be a woman. Biologically, every woman counts in reproduction and perpetuating life itself, giving each woman an intrinsic worth regardless of what she does. It only takes one man, however, for many women to have children. So historically, this gave rise to the idea amongst human societies that men are largely disposable, whilst every woman is indispensable. This is why instinctively we prioritize safety and comfort for women rather than men, why women are rescued first in any emergency or disaster and get the first seat in lifeboats, why men tend to work longer hours, risking life and limb in the more dirty and dangerous jobs like being coal miners, oil drillers, foot soldiers, construction workers, rubbish.
But hear her out though. Hear her out. The problem is women think they can do these jobs too. You know, and they think they can do the jobs as good as men. You know. And the problem is I'm going to tell you a story that happened with one of my dad's comrades when he was in the independence struggle for our country. One of my dad's comrades, she was a woman and stuff like that. And the leader of the struggle said, okay, you want to be front line? Then, yeah, let's see what you got. You know, she decided that she wanted to be front line and really be on the field. But the problem is, she said it was too physically demanding. So she decided that instead of doing that, she would do something else to help with the struggle. So that just goes to show you that men typically take on the brunt of the work. And the problem is with these modern women, unfortunately, and this includes Muslim women. I know longshoremen who are millionaires. You know, I know longshoremen who have made millions of dollars. Okay? But it's not appealing to Muslim women and westernized Muslim women and also westernized non-Muslim women because he's not a CEO or he's not a rapper or he's not any of this. You know what I mean? Because he has a working class mentality, but he still managed to make like a meal, basically, make pretty good money. because he had smart investments and stuff like that. He had investment properties from working as a longshoreman. Unfortunately, they still look at him as like, oh well, it's not really cool. You know what I mean? And that's a dangerous ass job. You know what I mean? That's a dangerous job. You know, even me as a boxer, because I'm a boxer, and it's not the most popular sport in like America. You know what I mean? Or anywhere for that matter. Unless you're in Cuba or something like that. Because like I do that, I'm often, I guess you can say, like, they look at it as, oh, he's a boxer. You know what I mean? Like they don't look at it like as some kind of prestigious thing because it's not NBA, NFL, stuff like that.
Collectors and the male relative acting as the unpaid bodyguard in the home. To quote one activist, women are human beings whilst men are human doings. This privilege is not appreciated by feminists because, as pro-feminist Michael Kimmel once said, privilege is invisible to those who have it. When it comes to violent crime, the reality is that the more violent the crime, the more likely the victim is to be a man. Men are more than twice as likely to be murdered than women in the UK. When it comes to
And the crazy thing is about the whole violent crime thing. I hate to say it, but usually when there is a violent crime, a woman has something to do with it, because especially in the United States right now, because you have women like, because especially with these Beleggio women, they're just trying to set people up, and they're trying to rob people a lot now too. So what they do is they get watchdogs to do that job, and then in turn, usually like most of the time it's usually a man who they get, because the man, that man built himself up, that man has assets, that man has all types of things now. He really made something of himself. And so like usually, unfortunately, the victim is usually a man. That's usually how it works.
domestic violence, The Guardian reported that men are the victims more than 40% of the time, excluding unreported cases. And men are half as likely to tell anyone about it in the first place.
And that's a fact. I mean, that's the thing. Here's the thing. As men, we're in a lose-lose situation, because here's the thing. Women, Western women especially, are very violent, okay? However, if we put our hands on them, we're going to be the ones in deep trouble, okay? Even, another thing too, even if we call the cops, right? Even if we say, hey, this woman's out of control, this woman is not in her right mind, even if we do that, right? There's still a possibility that we're going to be taken by the cops, and she's not going to be taken by the cops, okay? Even if we report, hey, this woman right here, she's out of control, she's not leaving the property or anything like that. Even if we're in these scenarios, okay, there's a high possibility that we will actually be the ones who are going to be leaving in handcuffs. I'm just being real. I'm just being completely real. I'm being very, very real, okay?
When it comes to the provision of refuges, there are 7,500 for females in England and Wales, but only 60 for men. As for male rape victims within UK prisons, there's a collective state of denial. It's just not taken seriously. Men are held to a higher standard of self-defense, and so they often suffer in silence, reluctant to be re-victimized by an unsympathetic legal system or disbelieving treatment from professionals.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie. Um, when I first came to the United States, um, but also because of cultural things, um, you know, um, I was taught, I was basically taught, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry tears because they don't fly here. And I learned early on that there was not really any use to crying, and there was not really any use to feeling sad or feeling bad about what's going on, for the simple fact that nobody was gonna come here, nobody was gonna help me with it. I had to really just buckle down and just roll with the punches. And also, um, it came from my dad too, that, my dad wasn't really with that, showing emotions and stuff like that. And so he taught me the same thing, that, you got to suck it up and just take it to the prayer road. And so that's how it kind of worked out, for me. And so, yeah, this is completely true, that most of the time we just suffer in silence and just keep it moving and try to stay as stoic as possible. That's how we look at it. We look at it as it's just a test. You know what I mean? But women, on the other hand, they can't suffer in silence. I know not one woman who will suffer in silence. Eventually she has a breaking point, but men, we're not allowed to have that breaking point. It's just simply, yeah, it just simply doesn't work. So what she said is completely true, very true, nothing but facts.
Yet feminists generally remain egregiously quiet about male suffering as a result of resultant social roles. Whilst feminists seek liberation from the shackles of the traditional female role, the man is still expected to continue his traditional disposable role.
Yeah, and so that's another thing. Like, this video, we can really just continue on, because she's hitting every single point. The thing is that with us, we're not allowed to with men, we're not allowed to just turn it off and say, okay, well, I don't feel like being a man. I don't feel like being a traditional man. I don't feel like doing this, that, and the other. We're not allowed to just do that. Women have been, granted that thing. Women have been granted the permission to say, to be I don't want to be a traditional woman anymore. She's been granted that. Now, has it worked in her favor? I mean, that's debatable. It's really debatable. But seeing how many of them are single and stuff like that and bitter, you be the judge. But let's continue.
One-sided narrative of feminism is not the way forward. For feminists, equality is merely a facade to favour women, often at the expense of others. Like when former Equality Minister Harriet Harman, a feminist, publicly requested employers to discriminate against white men and hire women instead if both candidates were equally qualified. Or when former Equality Minister Patricia Hewitt, also a feminist, was found guilty of breaching the Sex Discrimination Act by overlooking a strong male applicant for a job in favour of a weaker female applicant. So feminists claim to see...
That happens a lot too. It happened to me, actually. When I first got out of college, I applied to a job, basically, and I had all the qualifications needed for that job. And what happened was they actually made it a point, basically, to make sure that I didn't get the job. And they made, and what they did is they actually made sure that, this one woman got the job, and this one woman honestly was just friends with, I want to say, one of the I guess assistant managers there. And so she got the job, and then it turns out that friend actually turned out to be someone who was doing some cyber security breaches. You know what I mean? So, I completely agree that they do that. What happens with these feminists, and a lot of times when it happens with these women, although they, I guess you can say, like when you get women around each other, they kind of like, it's not really a good thing. They just talk and talk and talk too much. They don't really like each other, but they will team up with each other when it comes to like bringing the downfall of a man.
Equality and call for a 40% minimum female quota on management boards, but conspicuously do not call for a 40% minimum quota for soldiers, prison guards, lumberjacks, miners, bodyguards, or construction workers. Why is that? Why not campaign for an end to the women and children first policy on lifeboats and have it first come, first serve? Why not have women and men compete side by side in the Olympics as equals? Of course.
Well, that's the thing with feminists and modern women in general. This is just with modern Western women in general. And I hate to say it's with modern Muslim Western women in general. What happens is they want to have their cake and eat it too. That's just the bottom line. So, they want, for example, they want to have more than what we have, right? They want all the privileges, they want all the favoritisms and stuff like that. But they really don't want equality. Because if they wanted equality, then yeah, compete right beside us. Compete right beside us in sports and stuff like that, and see what happens. Because now you have now that transgenders are doing it, women are crying foul play, and it's like, well, this is what you guys wanted, so why are you guys crying now? You just got what you wanted,
The reason feminists won't advocate this is because it's not really about equality, but the means to achieve gender privilege. Another shocking example is the feminist...
Yeah, you just got to keep that in mind. That's what it is. It's gender privilege. It's not gender equality. It's gender privilege. And, like, the unfortunate thing is, although men were winning the gender war, like, let's make no qualms about it. The gender war is being won by us. I'm gonna be honest. It's being won for sure. The only problem is that the gender privilege war is being won by them. Like, I'm gonna be honest. The gender privilege is being won by them. But the war, or I guess you can say the gender privilege battle, is being won by them, but we're winning the gender privilege. We're winning the gender war as a whole. You know what I mean? Men are winning the gender war as a whole. May Allah bless this sister too. May Allah preserve and bless this sister for doing this, because there's not too many like her who will do this. May Allah bless her for doing this.
Campaign for closing women's prisons. The Fawcett Society, the UK's leading feminist campaign for closing the inequality gap between women and men, campaigned that female prisons did not suit women's needs. So, as recommended in a report by Baroness Corsten, they should be closed and replaced with what is in effect women's social clubs, where female offenders get to spend time with each other, organising their own shopping, budgets and cooking, and then go home to their children at the end of each day. The Corsten report also stated that women and men are different. Equal treatment of women and men does not result in equal outcomes, going on to claim that women are governed by hormones in a monthly cycle, which affects their moods and emotions. These biological factors have a direct bearing on the way in which women experience stressful events during their lives. If a man were to say that about treating women differently in the workplace, he'd be called a misogynist. Strangely,
Yeah, that's true. Like that's true. Like so what happens is like a man like that says like okay men and women are different. If a man says it, then he's looked at as a misogynist. He's looked at as like okay toxic masculinity, down with the patriarchy and all this stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's what happens with him, right? But with her, you know, she's allowed to say that. She's allowed to say that, hey, we're different. You can't like really expect us to be doing the same thing, handling out the same like the same amount of work and things like that, right? You can expect her to say that.
feminists are completely happy for women to say that women are governed by hormones and cite biological factors when it comes to obtaining privileges. So for feminists, male criminals are to be punished to the full extent of the law, whilst female criminals should get comfort and help. Why is male suffering and injustice less important than female suffering and injustice?
Well, I mean that's pretty self-explanatory to answer because, like, what it comes down to is that these women want you to believe that these women still want to convince you that they're still, I guess you can say, in feminine nature, but they're really not in feminine nature. So they feel that, she's just a woman that, we have to take it easy on her plight. But when it comes to a male's plight, yeah, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, It comes down to that factor,
Surely, justice doesn't discriminate. But as we can see, feminism does. Feminists are not asking for equal...
And this is true, too, because the Nelado alayhi salatu salam, he even said that, if my daughter got caught stealing something, then I would order for her hand to be cut off. He even said that. So for them to basically for them to just basically like disregard what was even said before, this is kind of like this is like like you guys are kind of like going against like what was legislated before, And I'm sorry this is a long video, but yeah, I mean this sister is making very good points that obviously women don't want to hear,
treatment, but special treatment, gender privilege. Women do not need gender privilege and therefore they do not need feminism. In reality, they, along with men, need justice, a comprehensive justice for all. Secondly, women need clear solutions, but feminism is unclear and evasive. Feminism comes in many different factions: conservative, liberal, socialist, postmodern, ecofeminism, and so on.
And then also the most worst one that comes in is the neo-feminism, It comes in this this neo-toxic form. They'll talk about, toxic masculinity, but they definitely won't mention how toxic feminism really is. They'll be like, toxic masculinity, this, that, and the other. But you won't talk about how toxic your feminism is.
With no shared value system or moral guidance, feminists don't agree on anything but the name and will happily contradict themselves if need be. For example, feminists...
Very true.
...have no clear position on the sexual objectification of women. Some feminists advocate androgenizing the female appearance, and others campaign for safer cosmetic surgery without challenging why women actually feel the need to have it in the first place. Because feminism cannot deal with complexities.
I'll give you another example. You know, included with the feminism is sexual liberation, right? So, you know, you're allowed to sleep with who you want to sleep with. You're allowed to, like, it's your body, your choice. So you're allowed to sleep with who you want to sleep with. You sleep with everybody you want to. But at the same time, you're tired of guys objectifying your body, you know, and looking at it as an object. But you put it out there that you're sexually liberated, and your body is you can do whatever it is you want to with your body. You know, that's just how I'm just stating the obvious.
Promotes the idea of individualism instead. The idea that women should be empowered through redefining their own expectations. And feminists are always on hand to dictate that women should make men the benchmark of these expectations. Instead of freeing women from male expectations, feminists expect free women to be male. Finally, I argue that feminism denies human reality. It straitjackets women and doesn't understand or accommodate the natural proclivities of the genders. Virtually all species, from bees to primates, have different gender roles, with different biological abilities across the sexes. Yet feminists insist that any gender difference between humans is invented, and there is nothing biological about men or women that should inform their social roles.
Yeah, it's true. And they want to deny that. They think that men and women are equal and stuff like that. You know, unfortunately, like, I was watching the special, and it was a good special. It has some good points in it. But the problem is that the Nigerian female soccer team, what they said is that they basically said that men and women are they basically said that men that they can play better than men, that, you know, they're more capable of playing better and more effective than men. But I guarantee you, if you send the under 17 Nigerian soccer team to play against the women, they're gonna change their tune.
Scientific studies have clearly demonstrated, however, the role of testosterone in building muscle, increasing competitiveness, confidence, and risk-taking, making men better suited to the more hazardous and competitive roles of society.
And we can just go through our Muslim history and look at who was the leaders of, like, and who carved empires. We can go on the African continent, and we can name the likes of Uthman Dan Fodio. We can name the likes of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. We can name the likes of El Hajj Umar Tall Al Futi. We can name the likes of Suleiman Bal. We can name the likes of these people. If we go to the USSR region, we can name the likes of Imam Shamil. We can name the likes of Hajj Mansour. We can name the likes of Haji Murat. We can name, and guess what? They're all men. You know, they were all men. Women played their part in the back.
Because of testosterone, men naturally tend to be faster, bigger, possess more stamina, and are physically stronger. So teaching a girl that she can...
Yeah, let's be honest with ourselves. Why hasn't a woman ran under 10 seconds, you know, in the 100 miles, in the 100-meter dash? Why hasn't a woman ran under 10 seconds? In the hurdles, why hasn't a woman ran under, like why can't a woman run 44-inch hurdles instead of running, I think they run like 33-inch hurdles, right? So it's just, that's reality, you know. No matter which way you want to, no matter which way you try to twist it and turn it and try to turn it into something that it really isn't. It's reality, you know. We're genetically different.
Naturally competes equally with include men in everything is misleading. One absurd example of this is when feminists, attempting to achieve equal outcomes between the sexes, had the strenuous physical tests for UK firefighters lowered and the standards relaxed in order to accommodate more female firefighters. So the standards you can now expect from professionals in burning buildings and boardrooms, as I mentioned earlier, whether male or female, is much lower than before because of feminists.
Yeah, and so, like, that's the same thing with police officers. Like, that's the thing about, that's why me personally, I really don't take any female police officers serious, because, like, I know if I was on that kind of, like, time, if I was on the time of, like, a real savage, then I would overpower her easily. You know, there would be nothing she can do to, like, stop me. You know what I mean? Which is why a female police officer is really always going to be accompanied by a male police officer for backup, because she can't do it alone. You know, that's just the bottom line. She can't be alone. You know, I don't care how big she is. You know, there's certain jobs that women think they should have, but really shouldn't have them.
It seems feminists are implicitly agreeing with Plato when he said that women should be treated equally to men, except that not so much should be expected of them, leaving feminists in their absurd quest for equal outcomes between the sexes to campaign for mediocrity in the workplace rather than meritocracy.
Yeah, and that's what they think. They think that, like, while this is what they think. They think that they should be treated like what they think they should be treated more privileged than men, but they don't think they have to do the work to get that more privilege that they seek.
Feminists argue that the division of labor in traditional families constrains women's opportunities, that women are discriminated against in getting jobs and wages, that there exists a wage gap between the genders. However, these arguments collapse upon further scrutiny, because if employers could get away with paying a woman less for the exact same task that they could pay a man, why wouldn't they just hire women? Furthermore, statistics cited by feminists...
Yeah, that's true too. Like, why wouldn't you save your company money and just hire women more than men? Because, like, here's the thing. If women were getting paid less, then, like, obviously you would say, hey, well, I can save money, so why don't I just hire women instead of just hire men? It's like the same thing, like, with jobs being outsourced to, like, these different countries. Like, for example, like, if you call Amazon customer service, if you're chatting with Amazon customer service, chances are you're not talking to someone who's in the United States. Chances are you're talking to someone who's who's in India or even China. You know, because again, lower wages.
As evidence of the wage gap, tend to lump full-time hours in with overtime hours, of which women tend to do far less than men. They also average earnings from disparate jobs, like primary school teachers with investment bankers, sales engineers with chemical engineers, HR executives with finance executives. So they don't compare like-for-like jobs at all. Nor are women discouraged from entering higher-paying fields. They outperform men at university, but are more likely to choose languages, arts and social sciences, which pay less, whilst men are more likely to choose engineering, technology, math and sciences, which pay more.
So that's the thing, like, men by nature, like, even with boxing, I chose the most difficult sport to do, okay? I chose this sport. Like, this is the most difficult sport you can do, is boxing, okay? This is I kid you not. Boxing is the most difficult sport. But there's something in my mind that says, I want this challenge. I want to master this thing. I want to get it. I want to become a master at it. There's that certain thing inside of me that makes me want to do it. There was this certain thing inside of me that made me choose agricultural, like agronomy in college. There's this certain thing, and I kid you not, in my agronomy courses, there were probably only I can count the number of women on one hand who took those courses.
The division of labour once children are born also means mothers tend to intensify their home commitments and fathers tend to heavily intensify their work commitments. Men seem to make this trade-off more than women, perhaps because men feel more obliged to earn than women do. The reality is that the statistics do not reflect discrimination, but choices. If there is a glass ceiling, it seems that women are the main architects of it because they get to trade off higher-paying jobs for more flexible hours to combine work and family life, which means they not only get the benefit of the father's wage, but also a better work-life balance for herself. Isn't that more important than arbitrarily chasing the highest-paying jobs? Feminists don't want to be thought of as sexual objects, but seem happy to be valued according to their economic worth. Both assessments are materialistic, and neither should dictate the worth of a man or a woman. The wage gap is telling, in that feminists cannot deny the impact of motherhood on the woman's life choices, that men and women cannot live lives completely autonomous from one another, that men and women actually need each other to make a whole. So that's the wage gap. But if feminists are so keen on equality, what about their silence on the cancer research gap, the education gap, the violent crime gap, the death on the job gap, the suicide gap, the life expectancy gap, all of which discriminate against men? In idolizing the male and trying to create an androgynous sexuality where men and women are virtually identical, except for their anatomy, feminists have perpetuated a misogynistic self-loathing for the traditional female role. Motherhood and female tenderness is now viewed as a weakness. The strength of men, which can be used,
and that's a fact. That's why you see these men that they're the way they are is because their mothers aren't giving them the love that they need. You know, their mothers are basically mad at them and stuff like that, and their mothers unfortunately want to be men too. And also on top of that, their mothers want to turn them into their husbands as well. And that usually happens with the single mother. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, that happens mostly with single mothers where they turn their like kids, their offspring into like whatchamacallit, where they turn them into like husbands to them. You know, I've seen it often. There was this one 37-year-old woman who, you know, she had a kid. Her son was like 21 years old, and like with that being the case, the son was actually, you know, she would do everything for the son like she would a husband. You know what I mean? There was a recent video where there was a guy paying bills inside the house of, but the handicap was that it wasn't his house, but he was paying bills inside the house, and there was a grown son there, and he was, I guess, the stepdad, and he said, yeah, he has to leave and get on with his life, but the mom wasn't having it.
Lead wars, just as it can be used to be fierce protectors, is often kept in check by the compassion and temperance of women. But when women abandon these qualities and want the same aggression that they perceive in men, what will be left? When feminists are insisting on taking over the male role, is it any surprise that men are shirking their responsibilities, which they once did with pride, diligence, and selfless duty?
Well, I mean, it's kind of twofold with this situation that I see. You know, like the women, for example, they you know, they like Pookie, Ray Ray, and Chad because Chad has more, like Chad, Pookie, Ray Ray usually can match their masculinity. You know, that's one of the reasons why women like Pookie, Ray Ray, Chad, and you know, like these people, you know. But the thing is about that whole situation is the fact of the matter is that, you know, maybe, for example, Carlton, he has masculinity, he's masculine, but he keeps it in check because he's so busy like designing cars for Tesla, or he's so busy like being a nuclear physicist that he really doesn't have time to do that. But Pookie Ray Ray, they have time on their hands, so that's why they're able to do the things that they do. And this is what compels women to draw to them, because of the simple fact that the women, it's like the women are seeking guys who can match their masculinity.
If feminists want to have it all, they would most likely end up having to do it all, often at the expense of their own well-being, and most importantly, at the expense of our children. In Islam, men and women and their actions are equal in the eyes of God. God says in the Quran, "Never will I allow to be lost the work of any worker among you, whether male or female. One of you is as the other." Islam primarily addresses men and women the same, because men and women by and large share the same human characteristics, and it addresses them separately in relation to the few areas where they differ. The Islamic system isn't based on selfish individualism, but a God-centered worldview promoting mutual reciprocity. In Islam, women do not serve men, and men do not serve women. Rather, we serve God by helping each other and giving to each other based on human needs.
And that's like the best way to look at it. So, for example, there's many hadiths that say that Nailatu alayhi salatu salam, he said that if you relieve a Muslim of something, that God will relieve you of your challenge. And so with that being said, that's like a husband, that would be like equivalent to a wife, running bathwater for her husband, massaging her husband, asking her husband how his day was and stuff like that. You're actually relieving him of the stress that comes with his life. But they have since abandoned that most of the time. It's sad to say it, that but most Western Muslim women, and just Western women in general at large, they don't know how to be women anymore. Like that, I'm just, I know we're not supposed to slander, in Islam and stuff like that, but I'm just keeping it real. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I see it all the time on social media apps.
With the understanding that humans are not all the same. Islam guards the female from the moment she enters the world by rebuking and prohibiting the practice of female infanticide as one of the gravest crimes to be committed. Such religion can only go on to challenge the ill treatment of women and secure her well-being at every stage of her life. Through property rights, marriage contracts, political participation, inheritance laws and dress code, it advocates complementarity with men rather than competition. Marriage is the bedrock of family life in Islam and the fundamental unit of Islamic society, giving us rights and duties over one another. As a wife, she has the right to be provided for, including her own living space, and is guaranteed financial safeguards should her marriage...
Yeah, so I mean, even if your wife wants to, for example, have a different living quarters for herself, then yeah, you can, you can do that, you can do that. And if you decide, hey, I want to be polygamous, then, you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to have different living quarters for each wife that you're going to, be attended to. That's how that works, and so with that being said, with that being said, it's these women, these women don't, they don't get that,
not work out. Yet Islam does not straitjacket women. It allows women to enter the workplace, but not out of the necessity of the struggle to support herself, but out of choice, to be pursued at her leisure. In Islam, no...
Yeah, so that's another thing. That's another thing about it. It's when you marry a woman, you're obligated. You're obligated to take care of her. With the deen. You know what I mean? With the laws laid out. I mean, that's the reason why. That's part of the reason why that you're going to see. You will see. Righteous fathers vet the potential suitor on if he can take care of her, right? And so if she decides that she wants to work for herself or work and just make extra income for herself, where she doesn't have to give the money to the husband, she can do that. You know, that's allowed, you know.
Everybody has a right over her earnings. However, Islam mandates that a man's earnings must be used to provide for the women of the household, irrespective of whether they work or not. Furthermore, as a mother, the woman is given preference for respect over the children, from the children over the father. Such is the esteemed role that she plays at the heart of the soul and the family, and by extension, society. So Islam provides a clear, natural and just solution to ensuring justice for all humans, and has no need for feminism's vain attempts to reinvent the wheel that Islam set in motion over 1400 years ago. In Islam, power is not a virtue, it is a burden and a responsibility.
And that's true. Like, when you look at it, you look at people who have power and you look at like what they have to go through and things like that with that power. You know what I mean? You look at the different kind of like challenges that they have, like with power, you know, having power. And it's not, for some reason, these women want all of that power and they wouldn't even know what to do with it. That's the whole thing.
Instead of seeking to empower ourselves, we should seek to empower justice. In Islam, women are liberated from the servitude of men and liberated from the expectations of other women. It is virtue which all human beings, regardless of gender, career, or social role, can equally strive for. In the end, true self-worth and contentment doesn't come through submission to any aspect of creation, material, men, women, none of it. It only comes from submission to the Creator himself and all that he commands. Thank you.
Yeah, so that, I mean, this sister like hit every point that, you know, like that I would have hit, you know, that sister hit everything. And it just goes to show you that, like, basically, you know, the feminism and these, like, and this hot girl summer and these boss babes and stuff like that, like, it just goes to show you that they're wrong and that God and his messenger are right. And the more they keep on committing wrong, the more that dudes are going to walk away, and the more that it's going to be like, hey, you're on your own. This is what you wanted. So I don't expect modern women to take heed. I don't expect modern Western Muslim women to take heed, but hopefully this information reaches still traditional Muslim women, and they will continue to play their role, and also maybe traditional non-Muslim Western women, or traditional non-Muslim women, and they will continue to play their role, you know what I mean? But I know this one was a little bit long and drawn out, but Fool is signing out. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments, and John Armour.